for...
Yeah, so we're doing Baltimore Masters Pro on October 31st.
And that's the last one you guys are doing. Now, you're doing bodybuilding and classic physique, Jim?
I'm going to do both in Baltimore, yeah.
No, they have a master. I found that that's one thing that I've noticed is I feel like the masters bodybuilding, they've stopped doing a lot of masters IFBB bodybuilding shows. I feel like they've declined quite a bit over the last few years. I don't see as many masters pro shows anymore.
You know, there haven't been, but I think they're trying to get it back going again. You know, Gary always does his, the Pittsburgh Pro Masters is all the divisions. Mm-hmm. Baltimore is a pretty big show. They do all the divisions. And Legion Sports Festival, which was in California, they've moved it to Tahoe instead of Long Beach. They've been doing all the divisions. But, yeah, they haven't had a lot of Masters bodybuilding over the last few years.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I remember there was one that they used to do in Miami. That's one of my first Masters shows that I've got to watch. And I was just like, wow, these are great. And it's, you get a lot of, especially some of the older competitors that were around that just don't compete with the youngins anymore. And it's like, oh, they still can compete, but you got to give them a venue to do it. And if you're trying to put them up against regular open, bodybuilding, I feel like most of them aren't going to do it. But if you give them a spot to do it, you'll find quite a few of them are coming out still.
Yeah, hopefully we'll catch up a little more. I mean, I like doing bodybuilding. That's where I started, was bodybuilding. So Tom too started in bodybuilding. So
now, do you guys like classic physique more than bodybuilding? I find this is one of these weird lines that I've been finding. Some people like classic physique more. Some people like bodybuilding more. Some are like you, Jim, and they like to kind of keep both in both sides.
I would never try to compete open bodybuilding just because I'm just not built for that. I'm just not big enough. The nice thing with masters bodybuilding, especially as an over 50, you don't have the 5'6", 280-pound bodybuilder in the over 50 class. So I feel like I can at least get on stage as an over 50 bodybuilder and look like I should be on stage. To try to do open class bodybuilding would just be insane. So I'm built more for classic for that reason.
What about you, Tim? Do you think you'd go back to bodybuilding, or are you still liking classic physique more?
Currently, I love classic. I've had some great results the end of last year, and this season's going well for me. Maybe down the road, I'm only 45, maybe a little later in my career, looking to do bodybuilding. But currently, the height, weight for how short and how my body style is, I've transitioned well into the classic physique. When I was doing bodybuilding, I was competing at 165, 170, and the only option out there would be 212, and that's a big jump in weight. So now I get to be 180 pounds, and I'm right at 180 pounds when I'm getting ready to go on stage. I think my body is in a nice, I have a nice aesthetic, and I'm not overly huge, and I'm not depleted too much where I look sickly. So right now, classic seems to work for me, and I'm going to stay with it until maybe something changes down the road.
And, I think classic really filled a gap. It used to be if you won your pro card as a welterweight or a lightweight or as a bantamweight and even middleweights, your only option when you turn pro was really to do it be at 212. But if you turn pro at 165 as a welterweight, to turn around and try to become a 212 that's just a massive, massive change.
Correct.
So the nice thing for the classic guys, the guys who are winning their pro cards even in bodybuilding, are the right size already for classic. When Tim got his pro card, he competed in welter and classic, and he could have been 170 in classic, but he wanted to do welter also, which had to be 165. So Tim actually won his pro card in classic at 165, 5 pounds lower than the allowed weight, but showed very well as the welterweight also.
Now, question for as classic physique pros, why? So this is one thing that I've heard from other people and always wondered myself. In the Olympia, I see guys like Santi, who's like 5'6", having to compete in a classic lineup with guys like, who are 6 foot. And I'm like, regardless, like, if they, as a tall guy, there's no division breakdown in the pro league for classic. And I find that to be kind of, again, I can see it being disheartening for some guys again, just like the open bodybuilding is, because there's no division between them all. And there's no height difference. They all just kind of stand on stage together. And if you have somebody who's big and very classically designed versus somebody who's short and very classically designed, is there going to be a middle ground, or do you think it's always just going to go towards the bigger, more symmetrical guy versus the small guys?
Well, maybe, but with having Breon win the last, not this reigning Mr. Olympia, but he was the 17 in 2006 or 2017, 2018 Mr. Olympia. He's not much taller than me, and Terrence Ruffin is my height, and he came in second in the Arnold this year. So those are shorter 5'6" guys. I'm 5'5.5".
Okay.
And they're around my height. Now Chris Bumstead is taller, and of course he's the reigning Mr. O.
Yeah.
But Breon stood toe to toe with him this past year at the Olympia. So yes, he is taller, and yes, he might have more mass. But they might like that bigger look. But Breon, he's a 2-time classic Mr. Olympia.
And I think also, the way they do classic by having an allowed weight per inch of height, is a really good attempt to keep everybody proportionally the same. Mm-hmm. So you really don't have the guy who has such a huge advantage because he's twice as wide proportionally as everybody else. You just can't be. I think in some ways the shorter guys have a little bit of an advantage because, as the weight scale goes up and the height scale goes up, you do get a little bit proportionally smaller, I think. Okay. The difference between 5'5" and 5'6" is much different than being 5'11" to 6 foot.
True. Very true. Yeah, we have DeAndre. We have DeAndre Campbell getting ready for the Mr. O, one of our muscle potential champions as well. Should be his first time in the O competing in classic physique, so that should be an interesting a lineup. He's been doing really well this year, and I think that should be a nice little change to he has that very symmetrical body, very very nice shape to him, and should be interesting to see how he comes for the O. Was that 11 weeks out now for the Olympia?
Yeah, just about 11 weeks. Yes.
So that should be an interesting show. Is that still in Vegas this year, or they moved this too?
It's in Vegas. They moved it to Planet Hollywood, so it's back on the Strip, and it's supposedly beautiful venue, and it's going to be a big event. Luckily, we're going to be going only as attendees in the crowd, but we'll be there because we try to make it a yearly event, and it's going to be a great time.
Nice. It's December 17th through 19th. That Thursday through Saturday is the actual event. So we're traveling out on the 17th in the morning, and then we'll be at the expo and the shows. We have tickets for both night shows, the expo, and then we fly back on Sunday.
Are they allowing the expo to happen now, or is that like a limited?
No, the information that we have this week, because everything keeps getting updated like everything else, is that they moved the venue, the expo venue, to the Planet Hollywood. Mm-hmm. And if they actually are saying they've moved the expo, they're still working the expo with an intention to have it's no point in having an expo if you can't have people attending it.
Right.
So that is the indication that they still intend to have the expo with people.
Okay, interesting.
Like everything else, we're standing by for further notice, but making our plans with the best data we have. And right now, is that the expo is happening, the show is happening, and we'll be there.
Now, a question I've been asking the guys who did the Pittsburgh: did you for you guys? Did they do the straight through format as well as they did for the others?
Yes.
Now, how did you like that format?
Loved it.
Loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it.
The original plan, which actually wasn't quite as good as what they ended up doing, because originally it was going to be 2 groups at a time, prejudging finals. Okay, now let's bring out the next 2 groups, prejudging finals. But what Gary ended up doing, which was nice, is he did all of the bodybuilding prejudging in age order, and then he did all of the bodybuilding finals. And then he did all of the classic age order, then all of the classic finals age order, and did the same thing with men's physique. So originally, it was going to be very, very quick, like 10-minute turnaround between pre and finals. But by doing all of it and then turning around and doing all the finals, we probably had about a half an hour break between the two.
Which
and Baltimore's going to do the same thing.
Oh, okay. Very cool. Do you think this is going to be a new format style
The
that you'll
crazy
see?
thing was we were done by 9:15 Friday morning. We're used to. Pardon?
No, I was going to say, do you think this is a format style, even once COVID is done, that you think people will start sticking with? Because I feel like that's one complaint with NPC shows, especially, and IFBB shows. They're so long.
I don't think they will.
You don't think they will?
They are, but you're looking at ticket sales, and if you're going to drive somewhere and you're going to pay money for a ticket, I think that they rather have the morning folks than try to get the people that only want to come to the night part. I don't see it lasting, but as a competitor, it was great. We got to do what we needed to do, catch our breath, get back out there and knock it out, and be able to enjoy the whole experience quickly.
I think also, Aaron, when people want to go to a bodybuilding show, people usually have a preference of, I want to go to prejudging because that's what I like to see. I want to see comparisons. I want to see the judging round. The finals are never quite as interesting, especially if people are just coming out doing posing routines and doing awards, and you're not doing, at least in the IFBB, they do the confirmation of scoring, so you do get to see some comparisons. So from an audience standpoint, I think that's better the traditional way, because you have people who want to go to prejudging, and you have people that want to go to the show, which is the finals. And
I get that. Yeah, I think I find quite a few. It's been a mix of opinions I've heard, and again, I find it, like you said, Tim, as a competitor, they loved it because they're like, especially the big guys, they're like, I am not waiting around for like hours upon hours and hours just sitting around doing nothing.
Well, the toughest part is once you have to get a little bit of water back in your system after being on stage the first time, it's the 4 to 6 hours between then and when you go back on stage, reducing your water, because all I want to do is drink, and that is some of the toughest hours in between the pre and finals, where I don't have that time because I had 20 minutes and I'm thirsty because I was done, and that was very, very enjoyable.
Yeah, Pittsburgh, we were backstage for warm-ups by 8 probably by 7, I think, and then we were completely done by 9:15. We were done, finished, complete, out the door at 9:15.
We couldn't even eat lunch because they were still serving breakfast.
Wow. I don't think I've ever heard that before.
They have for Baltimore Masters, they're doing all the women in the morning and they're doing men in the afternoon. So we don't go until the afternoon. But that's going to be nice, too. We have all day to get up and to fill out and get ready, which would be nice. We won't be rushed in the morning. And same thing, between prejudging and finals might be 30, 45 minutes. So it's fairly easy turnaround, but not so fast that it's hectic.
That actually makes sense. Yeah, I think that is something, I've talked with others on the program about is like, do you see, if COVID continues, will we see changes in bodybuilding like this as a permanent stay? Or, do we see, again, with the Olympia doing an expo, will the Arnold Expo be canceled next year? And again, these are big venues where, they're trying to attract, lots of people. And if this, mindset that you can't have big groups of people anymore together, especially internationally like the Arnold, so many people come from all over the world to do these type of things. I see it going, either nowhere quickly, or we're just going to have to come up with a whole new system for doing things.
I think as long as COVID is still really having such an effect, what we're going to see more of is like what we saw with New York Pro. New York is shut down. They can't do any events, so they had to move it to Tampa. I think they moved the Chicago Pro to Atlanta because Chicago's the same thing, to try to put on a show. In Chicago, I guess, is so hard now that they're moving it to Atlanta. So probably we'll see that until COVID is over. I think some of the promoters are getting really good at executing a show in COVID, but I think the venue is a bigger question, and they'll just have to figure out where we can do better.
We've done 3 shows with 3 different promoters, and every one of them was top notch.
Nice.
They handled it perfect. There was no hitches, and we fully understand that they are under the same restrictions and need to be as flexible as we do. And it's not their fault. They don't want to do some of the things they have to do, and we don't want to have to do what we have to do. But we were able to compete, get on stage, and do our thing, and we're appreciative of it.
And I think that's what I find that most people are. The fact that, you know, they're as promoters, they don't even have to. Like they're probably not making the same amount of money as they would have in a normal year. But you know what? They know they do this for you guys. You know, the competitors, the people who want to compete. You know, they put all this effort and planning into it anyways. You know, figure a workaround. And I've liked the workarounds I've seen. I've liked some of them have done live streams too, which I think might be a newer thing that we'll start seeing a lot more of, allowing people who can't make it able to just watch. Even if you have to buy...
Awesome. My family has watched every one of my shows because of it, or I can't bring them all to Pittsburgh and Baltimore or wherever the case may be. Even though Tampa's an hour and a half from us, it was so much more convenient to pay the $19.99 and have my wife sign in with my son and daughter. They watched me. They had a great time. They called me after it, and they were home, and it was just so convenient that I think it was a great touch that they offered the streaming.
I think we'll definitely see more of that. I can tell you, too, you know, we went and watched the Tampa Pro back in August. Having been a spectator and a competitor this year, it's more difficult from a logistics standpoint to be an attendee, spectator to the show than it was to actually be in the show.
Really?
Yeah, you know, just the rules, the masks and the rules and the taking your temperature every time you go in and out. I mean, they did a great job with the audience as well. But yeah, there was more
hoops to jump through than if we were competing.
Gotcha. Because I've seen at some NPC shows they're making guys wear masks on stage while they compete.
California required masks on stage.
On the IFBB Pro, California Pro, they had to wear them.
Yeah.
Tampa Pro, they had to wear their masks up until the point they stepped on stage.
Now, was there somebody on the side collecting them to take them away from them? Because I didn't see, like, you have no pockets, so it's like, if you're on stage, you have to take them off. Like, is there a table where you put them down, or was there just somebody there holding them, or?
That was what I wondered, because people, I mean, we saw in Tampa, you come down the stairs outside the venue to go to backstage, and when they were walking down the stairs, they were all wearing their masks. I kind of wondered the same thing. When you took it off before going out on stage, where did you put it, and how did you make sure that you got your mask back when you came off stage?
Correct. That's kind of one of those questions. Hope we'll see how. I mean, when I get DeAndre on, I feel like this is going to be something similar that the O will have to deal with, or they might have masks on at the O. Who knows? I'm not really sure yet. Because that's the one thing I wasn't really sure of. Why some shows? I'm guessing it may be the state that was requiring them to wear.
It's all the ordinances that are at the location. Even I think in Nebraska, in Omaha, they moved the venue kind of last minute because the ordinances where they were trying to have it were going to be a little too restrictive. So they moved it to a different hotel that was in a different area that actually made it possible for us to have an event.
Okay. Yeah,
I think that also, the St. Petersburg show went to the Tampa Marriott, I think just because they had done the New York Pro there and they kind of had it all worked out. So it's easier to just move the event there than to try to go through all the logistics again and try to have it in St. Pete.
Well, I think that's something I've found, even with, like, because NPC Nationals has been in the same place for several years now until, of course, they're moving it to Orlando. But I think that's one of those things, once they find, especially the promoter community isn't huge in bodybuilding, especially in the United States. I feel like there's, a handful, maybe good 20 people that actually put on big shows. And once one of them finds a good spot or a good system to use, I feel like they tell the others, and then they're all like, oh, yeah, let's just switch over here because they already have done it well for this. And now they can just replicate that over and over again and continue that same pattern just because it works already.
That was evident when they moved the New York Pro to Tampa because they had the Tampa Pro and then the had the New York Pro in Tampa a few weeks later, and then they moved our show from Clearwater to the place they had the New York Pro, which was in Tampa. So, yeah, they found a system and it worked, and they rolled with it.
And, I think that's a great thing. It really does. It really makes, again, it makes everything possible.
Yeah.
What were we saying, Jim?
I said also with the venue, I imagine the same thing goes for the people who own and manage the venue. They're trying to do something they haven't done before, and they're scared of how am I going to manage, a show with 700 people and an audience and all the restrictions. Once you kind of get through that maiden voyage of, the Tampa Water Street Marriott had the New York Pro there. When it came time for us to do the Hurricane Pro, it's like, we just did this 2 weeks ago. We know how to do it. We're fine. So, like anything else, the more times the people who are actually managing and executing the show do it, the better they're going to be at it.
Well, that's fair. And I think, again,
the big thing that bodybuilders learn very early on is how to be flexible. So I think it's easier for us because we're used to the schedule changing without as much notice as you would like to have.
That is for sure.
It's probably helped the bodybuilders a little bit from a competition standpoint.
I get that. So what does the future of 2021 look like for you guys? Any thoughts yet, or are you just kind of finishing up this year and then going to take some time off to reassess?
We're going to be bigger and better next year.
100%.
Very good.
Hopefully we can have a full off season with the gyms open full time. It was definitely an interruption to have the gyms closed, but we made the best of it. So if we can have a fully focused off season to come back next year, we should both, because neither one of us are pushing the weight limits yet. I could put on 10 pounds of lean mass and still make weight. Tim could probably put on 7 or 8 pounds and still make weight. So we should be able to come in bigger next year and better.
But first, we have some business to take care of in Baltimore. We want to finish strong. And then, again, like Jim said, we're going to use the winter productively and make those necessary gains or changes through either what we decide or the feedback we've received and try to push the limits of those weight limits and come back, bigger, better, stronger, and more competitive in 2021 and have some great results.
It's the bodybuilding motto. You just get a little bit better every year.
It is. That's true. Now, has there been, because I'm trying to think and I haven't thought of it, and I might not be, just know it didn't happen. Has there been a Masters O Classic Physique competition yet?
No. They haven't had a Masters Olympia in probably 10 or 15 years. I think that's the show that you were talking about that used to be in Miami. Mm-hmm. There was a show called Masters Olympia.
Yep.
And that hasn't been, it's been at least 10 years since they've had it. So when Gary started the Pittsburgh Pro Masters, the idea behind it was, okay, this is something that's all Masters, all Pro, but there's nothing with an O stamp on it that's Masters.
Do you think there should be one, or you think the Masters is pretty well off, better than?
I think it would be awesome.
It's one of those shows that
that's got the O stamp on it would be awesome.
Oh, I agree, and I think that's one of those shows that I was like, Masters competitors, I feel like get bumped again out of the limelight at a certain point, especially at the O level, and it's just like, oh, well, that's it. You don't need any more. But I'm like, but I feel like now, especially with the classic surge, and there seems, like I said, we were talking about the Masters bodybuilding seems to be growing quite a bit. Maybe if it's not even every year, but maybe like every 5 years they do a Masters O type of thing, just to allow the guys that wish to do that type of show to get that O title. Because, again, I feel like there's a lot of really great physiques out there, and again, I always say 35 is way too young to have a Masters, maybe 45, 50, but still, like, I get why they do it, but at the same time, I still feel like there should be, an outlet that they can get an O.
I can see in lights already. Also, Potential presents Masters Olympia.
Why not? Like I can say, like, maybe
Did you
this is
hear me?
the. Oh, I did a Masters O by Muscle Potential. I'm super down for that.
It could be the. There you go.
Sign us up.
Hey, I remember when I started this. Me and my
Muscle
friend,
potential.
my friend
Muscle
Kerry and I used to talk to a promoter. He passed away several years ago now. Vinny Greca. He ran almost all the big bodybuilding shows in Massachusetts back then, and he always said it's like he did it because he loved the sport. It wasn't about him making money. It wasn't about him doing anything else other than just doing it. And I feel like again, as the Masters crowd, it's one that's completely neglected in the bodybuilding world so much now. It's like so much about the opens and the 212s, and again we're getting everybody gets older. Especially some of these guys that wish to get back in the. I'm seeing a lot posts lately on social media about getting back into it, and I'm like, I feel like maybe COVID re-sparked some people's energy and drive. So who knows? Maybe in another few years we'll see something happen like that. It's all possibilities of what could the future hold for us.
We'll be looking for you to promote the first Masters Olympia in 2023. You heard it here first.
I'm down for it.
Masters Olympia.
Let's that's why I started the Champions program. It's like I just wanted to start getting more people talking about the product, more people who really endorse the product. It's one of those things that, especially in the bodybuilding, I think you guys will admit, it's about word of mouth. It's like seeing and knowing where things come from is a big pull. There's only so much as a single person and a small company can do to get the word out there, especially in a very niche product like we have. But, we try to make it a quality product and something that stands out when, people can see it. And I think that's one thing I get a lot of. People are like, is this your product? I'm like, yes. I'm like, how did you know? They're like, it looks like it's made for them. And I'm like, it is made for them.
I do think, Aaron, your products are very recognizable. If you put 10 people on stage and 6 of them have muscle potential on, I could probably get 5 of them, if not all 6. It definitely has its own look that doesn't come from any other company that I've seen.
And you know what? That's kind of why I think that's 90%. Like there's a lot of people out there that make trunks. Andre Colling. And I think that's kind of one of my first standards was Andre Colling's line. Everybody, I think that was one of my first pair of trunks came from him. And it was like it's a great product and it's a wonderful product. But it's one of those things but we're not small, medium, large sizes. That's the one thing bodybuilders aren't. We don't just fit in a pre-contained box and say, put this on and hope it looks the best it can. And that's kind of was my going into this, when I started doing bodybuilding at like 16, that's all you kind of think about. Like, oh, okay, I put them on. And, as you got older, you're like, these just don't move with me or they don't flow with your body. And, as I started talking to actual people about designs, they didn't actually ask for measurements for anything. It was more about, oh, what's your waist? And I'm like, this. And that's all. And then they'd be like, well, they have a generic pattern that they use. So if your weight is this, then this has to be this, and your front height has to be this. And it's like, but why don't you just measure versus using some random logic that you think should work versus just measuring people. I felt like, why don't you just measure and get those measurements, and then that will fit that person exactly as they need to be versus hoping that they'll like what they get. And again, I find 9 times out of 10, most of them are baggy. It doesn't fit you exactly, and also that's part of why I like ours is because we take into account you're going to drop some weight. Especially, we know you're 8 weeks out, and you get some guys who order 8 weeks out. We'll take in the waist an inch or two. I'd rather it be a little snug 8 weeks out and then be perfect fit on day of show versus fitting you great now 8 weeks out, and then by day of show you look like a hot mess because they're super baggy on you, and you've lost a ton of weight that nobody ever accounted for. You know, that's how we have always looked at it, and you know, we've taken the time to really just sit down and again, we talked to, you know, that's why we always tell people send in fitting pictures, you know, do a design consult. You know, we always find the guys who don't do the design consults because they take all the measurements themselves and then say, oh, I know what I'm doing. And then they get their suit sometimes. We're like, but I'm not happy. I'm like, but we tried to sit down and actually go through this process to make sure you were all valid, you had all the right numbers before getting started. It's like I don't see companies ever really doing that with anybody. You know, I feel like they just go, they plug in some numbers on the site, they say we got your order, and then whatever time frame later, something shows up at your door. And I feel like that's really just A, impersonal, but B, it doesn't make sure you get the best fit for whoever is ordering their suits. So, I don't know. I think you guys have done great. I'm glad we finally got Jim into some bodybuilding trunks with us. And
Me too.
you know, again, it was funny because I remember I saw you'd done that show, and I was just like, oh no, no, no. Like we need to make sure we get you into something better because I was just like, I did not like those fit on you at all.
Yeah, you know, Pittsburgh doing bodybuilding was kind of a last minute. I mean, I added bodybuilding when I got there. It was kind of a last minute thing. And then we were doing St. Pete, and I thought, man, that was fun doing bodybuilding in Pittsburgh. And I didn't realize they were even having over 50 bodybuilding at Hurricane Pro until the last week.
Gotcha.
Like, man, that was so much fun. I want to do that again. But now it's like, okay, I don't want to do another show in 10-year-old trunks that don't quite fit right.
And that's right. You know, that's the thing. You've changed over the last 10 years. And I think that's one reason why I like us because I have guys actually at the Pittsburgh. One of the super heavyweight guys, I think he got fourth, Nate. It's funny because he had trunks. We had made him.
My last bodybuilding show was 2013 before Pittsburgh. That's the last time I wore bodybuilding trunks and did front and rear lat spread.
And yeah, that's the thing. Those trunks didn't fit. He got his from us, I think I want to say in 2013 he ordered those trunks. And he still wears them for competition. And he had them on, and they look great. And I was like, but see, this is why we make a quality product. That it all these years later, you know, he still has amazing trunks that still fit him. You know, it's like, I think with yours, I was noticing, I was like, is the waistband stretched out over time? Has it lost something behind it? Or or did you change dramatically in size comparatively to where you were before?
I tell you, my classic trunks from last year fit exactly the same this year as they did last year. I mean, I'm almost exactly the same size, given that I didn't get a lot of improvements with the year we had, but they still fit. I mean, they fit just like they did, and they're still, the elastic, everything is still spot on. So I couldn't ask for any better trunks this year than last year's trunks.
So I can ask you, Jim, because you're probably the only one that has gone through all three phases of our classic physique trunks with us. You know, I remember when they made you originally have the more boxer ones that we've done, and then they went to the standard generic, but we made you the custom version.
The original requirement was 11 inches along the side. That was the original requirement. So they were they were long boxer shorts. They weren't even just boxers.
They were. And again, I remember everybody going, these suck. And I was like, I know. And again, we had talked about that originally too. I'm like, I feel like you're going to find a lot who are going to stretch that envelope a little bit and try to get as short as they possibly can. And I think it did happen. And then the same thing with the classic physique trunks, the briefs that they ended up going to. It's like the original, I think you did one show this year with the standard 4-inch side. And then you just recently used the custom ones we made for you as well.
Right.
Now, what did you think of, again, I know this was a push for you to switch over to the custom because you weren't really wanting to originally.
I love them. You know, there was a little bit of hesitation. When I did Memphis a couple of years ago, we got called on the carpet as a group for the classic competitors by the head judge because some of the guys had modified their suits to be non-compliant. And before finals, after prejudging, before finals, we got kind of called into the room by the head judge and given a stern talking to about not following the rules. So that was a little bit of my hesitation. But that was 2017, maybe.
Okay.
But before they really, this was back when the requirements were 11-inch sides.
See, the new ones are supposed to be really full.
And like everything else, I think they've grown.
No, go ahead.
Pardon?
No, go ahead.
I think like anything else, the first year you're just trying to figure it out, and then over time you have to optimize. So I think over the last few years they've really optimized the trunks and what's different enough from bodybuilding to still separate it from the rest, but still something that can make you look your best. And those original 11-inch trunks were just not, they just really didn't show the body the way you'd want to show it.
No, they didn't.
They were so focused on making it look different than bodybuilding, I think.
No, and I think that's kind of, like you said, was they wanted something different. But I still think the thicker sides that we've moved to now, are, they don't have to be super different. Like I said, I feel like the ones, the customs we made for you, they're still very classic physique, but they fit your physique versus somebody else's.
I think the ones I wore in Pittsburgh are perfect for classic. They're brief enough that they can really show off the body, but they're not easily confused with bodybuilding trunks. So I really like that form factor. I think that's just right.
Oh, I agree, and that's kind of why it's like it's like DeAndre started with our custom, and he wore them, and he said he got rave reviews about them, and other guys were like, oh, these just fit so much better. They fit your physique better, and I'm like, but that's the thing. I think that's really why, again, it steps apart than just the standard ones you get off the IFBB Pro site they were selling. They just look like they're made and taper, especially to the Adonis belt, when you want that tapered versus just cutting people straight across the midsection, because that's where it happens to fall on your shape because you order small, medium, large, versus it's not who have the standards, because it doesn't fit them well comparatively to somebody like you who it fits them really nicely to their physique. Anything else? Oh, champions. So we got you both on champions. I'm very glad, and we were saying earlier, Tim has already gotten one referral into that, and Jim is trying to get some himself. I'm so glad you guys have joined up with that, and I think especially with classic physique getting bigger and bigger, and seeing our classic physique trunks really starting to move, having guys like you on the team to show guys that it's a really great product and able to really custom to each person's physique really helps us out a lot. And I thank you both for joining our Champions program.
Oh, absolutely, and that's what it was. It was standing in the lineup and people taking notice that the trunks I were wearing were different than anybody else's, and the quality was there. That you start talking to the guys in the lineup and you say, these are top-notch trunks, and where'd you get them? You say Muscle Potential, and the fit and the style is just on point. And that's what's going to separate your trunks from everybody else's, that look. And as Jim said, they have a different look, and people are starting to take notice of it.
Thank you guys so much. And again, it's an effort. It's like 10 years. Next year it'll be 10 years, and it's like,
wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
It is. I'm super happy it's been 10 years. It's like I've seen it grow. I've seen it multiply. We see more people. This year, of course, we took a hit because of COVID. But you know what? I'm happy that we got the time to sit down and kind of work on things. Starting the remote type of things, trying new processes, getting ways of fitting pictures to guys, allowing them to help out. And stuff like that. I feel like over time, all that stuff will be beneficial, just because it makes it more one-on-one, just a customer to us. We really do want to make sure you have a good fit. We really do want to hear from you to make sure you're happy with the product. Because, again, I think we've all ordered trunks. You got something in the mail, and you never heard from anybody again. They got your... I think that's about all most of them really do. especially for men's trunks, at least. I find that at least with the, when women get their stuff made, it's a handhold process, literally from step one to the very end, and they send them all sorts of things to make sure they get the right sizing for them. But again, going to guys, it's just like, here, give me this, thanks, bye, see you later. And I just never found that to be, good customer service, period. And B, it's like, why, find out what, did it fit right? Was there something off? Even if there's something off, then we can try to fix it and move forward and get you something that fits the way it needs to be fitted to your body and make sure you're happy with the product. Okay, guys. Anything you'd like to say before we go this afternoon?
We just appreciate the opportunity. We appreciate your time. Enjoyed spending a few moments with you. Love your trunks, and hopefully we continue the success we've had this year to close out 20 and have a great 2021.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's been great finally getting to talk with you guys. It's it's one of those things where I'm enjoying getting to talk to my customers face to face, versus just talking to people online. The social media is a great tool, but at the same time, it's like you never get to really know somebody and get to talk to them anymore. And I feel like hopefully this program will give us chances to talk to more guys and have people come back and just keep building rapport with everybody and getting people's time to know the competitors and see what life is like. And it's not just, everybody, is guns and beautiful. It's the world, and everybody gets their own little version of it. You and your tropical paradise in Florida. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming on, for dialing it in today. And you have yourself a great rest of your day.
All right, thank you. Have a great day.
See ya.
See ya.